Hi, class. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm your instructor for interpreting the scriptures. And I am looking forward to the next 8 weeks with you. We're going to learn a lot, and I'm going to get you started right away by taking a look at week 1. And just a quick note, when you open the class on Blackboard, hopefully it will automatically go to the announcements page. Hopefully it's set that way. If it doesn't, please make sure that you check in with announcements on a regular basis. I will be putting up at least one announcement a week, but usually more than that. So please check your announcements. I will also, there's a little thing I can click that says send it to your email, but that only goes to your Moody email. And the only way I can get in contact with you is through your Moody email. So please check your Moody email on a regular basis also. All right, so let's go to week 1. And your first assignment, well, actually, the first thing listed here is your reading report. So every week you need to check off that you've done the reading. And the first actual assignment that you turn in is a paper. You're going to write a little essay to begin with. And you need to read a chapter from both of our textbooks, Everyday Theology, which is Van Hooser, Kevin Van Hooser. And then the other one is Grasping God's Word. That's kind of our main textbook for the class. Now, you are going to read the 2 chapters, one from each book, and the Everyday Theology is going to talk about how to exegete, how to study and interpret the world we live in. And the chapter from Grasping God's Word is going to give you the overview of how to study and grasp the meaning of the Bible. So here is the assignment. In a minimum 2-page double-space essay, explain how cultural interpretation or cultural exegesis, everyday theology, and interpretation, grasping God's Word, relate. For this essay, follow the outline given below. So there's 3 points. Begin by giving your own definition of each of these terms, cultural interpretation and biblical interpretation. So how would you define them? All right. And explain what each tries to do. Now, I'm going to warn you, this is going to get confusing. Here's the clue they give. Review this guy's definition of hermeneutics, and it's found on page 45 of Everyday Theology. And when you look at this quote, it isn't explained very clearly. So I'm going to help you out with some of the words in just a second. So, but make sure you try to struggle with chapter 45 in that definition. Then also in the Grasping God's Word, look at the chapter you're supposed to read, and there's a heading called Basics of the Journey, and there's a paragraph right under that that you need to read. And those 2 quotes, those 2 references are going to kind of give you the essence of the starting point for your paper. All right. B, use the bulk of your essay explaining how these 2 tasks overlap in their method and purpose. Pay special attention to steps 1 through 3 in Grasping God's Word, the interpretive journey. So basically, you're doing the same thing. You're studying and interpreting the world and the Word. How do the methods that these books talk about overlap? How do they relate? Right? And then C, finally conclude with a short description of why cultural and biblical interpretation are important tasks for faithfully living out and teaching the Bible today. So why do we have to do both of these things if you want to be an effective student and proclaimer of God's Word? All right. Now, so I'm gonna help you with a handout in just a second. But also, if you haven't done so already, do the class introductions, go to the section where you introduce yourself. I think it would be great if you could include a picture of yourself, tell us where you live, maybe how far along you are in your online classes at Moody, Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Do you have a hobby? Are you in the Guinness Book of World Records? Tell us something interesting about yourself. Okay. And then there is a discussion board. This week's discussion board involves, when you're done reading this book or this chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's a 10-step process of how to exegete the world we live in. So you're going to pick something like a TV show or the Super Bowl or Star Wars or something in our culture, and you're going to take it through the 10-step process. And then on the discussion board, you're going to write about step 4, 9, and 10. You post that. You read other students. You interact with other students. Follow the directions. So let me switch us over now to this handout that I'm going to give you. The basics of the journey. When you are looking at Grasping God's Word, it said to pay attention to the words under this heading. I actually typed them out for you, so you can take a look at that. Then there's the interpretive journey. They've got a nice little picture there. Pictures are wonderful. Basically, they say, here's the task in interpreting the Bible. This is when the Bible was written 2,000, 3,000 years ago in this city. You live over here in modern land. How do we get from here to here? Well, there's a river where there's cultural differences and language differences and historical differences. So you have to figure out how wide that river is. How separated are we from this culture and language and so forth? Then you principalize. What can you, even though it was written that long ago in a different culture, are there principles that we can get that bring us over into our world? And then you check the billboard here, which is the rest of the Bible. Is your principle in keeping with the rest of the Bible? And then step 5, how do you apply it to the people in our world? So that's the big picture using cities and a bridge and a river. All right. Here I have also listed for you the 5-step process. So that's in the Grasping God's Word section. Then when you go to the Van Hooser book, now they have you focus on the one definition. I'm going to give you Van Hooser's definition of everyday theology from the same page, because I think this actually puts us more on target of the goal. He says everyday theology is faith seeking non-reductive understanding. Non-reductive understanding means don't look at a movie or look at a TV show or look at a parade and reduce it to just one simple thing. He says understanding is not served by simplistic theories that account for everything in culture in terms of one factor only, whether that factor be sin, technology, or economics. So, for example, Marxism looks at everything through economics. Well, is that all there is, or is there more? Sometimes Christians can look at the world and say, well, it's just sin, 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 sin. Well, is there more to it? This is going to push you to look at it from a multi-dimensional way. Now, here are his 10 rules for cultural interpretation. That's what you're going to follow in your discussion board. And then I mentioned this definition that involves locution, illocution, and perlocution. As I said, in the book, I don't think it's very clear. So I did a little research for you on the internet. There's a site that deals with speech theory. And here are some simple definitions of these 3 words in the definition. Locution is the phrase or sentence that has meaning or vocabulary and structure, grammar. So, for example, the sentence pass the salt involves 1, the physical action of conveying from one person to another. So passing from one person to another, that's the pass. And salt, a crystalline compound used to flavor food. That's the meaning. But it also has a structure, some of which, like word order, is obvious. We have to say pass the salt. We can't say pass salt the, or salt the pass, or any other variation, unless you are Yoda, of course. So that's a really complex way of simply saying locution is the words, or are the words that come out of the speaker's mouth or the writer's pen. It's the words, right? But there's other people. There's the hearer, and then there's the question: what's the intention of the speaker or the writer? So locution are the words. Illocution is the intention of the speaker. So from the words, we want to get to the intention. Why would somebody say pass the salt? The person saying pass the salt says so because, wait for it, she wants the salt. Now you go, that's really simple. But now we're moving from words to interpreting the intention behind the words. So illocution means the intention of the speaker or the writer. Her intent, in other words, is to end up with the salt shaker in her hand so she can use it. So that's the author, the speaker. The words are the locution. What's perlocution? There's a third part of a speech act called the perlocution. That it involves the listener. It's the effect on the hearer of the utterance, what is also called the uptake. In other words, if somebody says, pass the salt, and you're sitting at the dinner table and you perceive that they want the salt, now the perlocution would be your response. Hopefully you're going to pick up that salt and pass it. So those are some big vocabulary words, but when you break them down, they're not that hard to understand. So hopefully you will have a good time reading the 2 chapters and writing your first essay. I look forward to reading it. God bless. Have a great week.